Zelensky doesn't scrape and bow or kowtow. He doesn't do protocol. He just likes to grab the phone and say, let's chat. He much prefers one-on-one meetings where he feels he has the power to basically the power to win anyone over in a one-on-one meeting. It's a sort of an actor's power, perhaps, that he can play a role and win someone over. Thing he famously played president in a television series, Serving the People. He's a famous actor and comedian in Ukraine. I mean, that's how he came to fame here, and he launched his presidency with the same name as the TV series, Serving the People, Servant of the People. And the thing is that Servant of the People basically underestimated the extraordinary challenges that he would be facing as a real president. In Servant of the People, the biggest challenge he had was fighting corruption. Now he's waking up to battlefield briefings every day. He's engaging in high stakes brinksmanship and diplomacy with Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin. And he's, as you said, survived these assassination attempts. He lived in a bunker, 100 meters underground for the first few months of the war. And he's been separated from his wife and children for security reasons. He only ever sees them really quite briefly, I would say. And, occasionally they cross paths in government offices. It's a very difficult life, but he seems to have handled the challenge with aplomb.
We know what he's like, of course, when we watch his often nightly address, that awful experience in the Oval Office, and we'll go on to talk about that in a moment. But I just wonder, for those who know him, what is his attitude like? What is his approach to life? Does he still crack jokes? How does he bear the stress and the pressure?
Yes, I think he's found it hard to repress the comic actor in him entirely, and he does like cracking jokes still. Although one of the people who knows him well I spoke to said that since the war started, there's a sort of sadness in him now that he's noticed. Although his eyes still sparkle and he still, as I said, likes cracking jokes. But this comes and goes, and I think on occasion he can play somber as well, and that's what we've been seeing more of recently as the stakes have grown ever higher in this conflict with Russia.
You speak to Alexander Pikolov, who's a close friend of Zelensky since childhood, and he says he still speaks to him often. The president still has a sparkle in his eyes, but he also says he thinks Zelensky was born under a lucky star because he basically should have been dead by now. Tell us more.
Yes, that's true. Yes, he tells some fascinating stories about life growing up together in this industrial town of Kryvyi Rih in the twilight of the Soviet Union, when they were basically both into acting, and they liked telling jokes. And the Pikolov had a college comedy troupe, and he recruited Zelensky. In fact, he discovered Zelensky's talent, I think, when he went to a high school. He happened upon a rehearsal in a high school, and he saw Zelensky imitating, trying to play a fried egg, something like that. And then he signed him up for his own comedy troupe. But he said that as they went on tour later on together all over the Soviet Union with their comedy group, and they had some extraordinary scrapes. And yes, he said it's pretty amazing that they're still alive. One time their tour van broke down in Siberia somewhere in midwinter as the temperature dipped to minus 42 degrees. And he said, that you could easily have died that night. Another time they found themselves drawn into the middle of a knife fight when the crowd rioted. And then, there were various things like that that happened. He remembered an awfully scary incident when they were flying somewhere on Aeroflot, and the plane tried to land 6 times unsuccessfully. They really thought they were doomed, but
Goodness.
Luckily they managed to get back on the ground eventually.
We also have some insight on the fact that criticism does upset him greatly. He's sensitive to it. That's what his biographer told you. Let's talk briefly about that Oval Office meeting, of course, because that would have tested Zelensky to the end. He was accused by Donald Trump and JD Vance, of course, of ingratitude and intransigence as well. An ill-tempered meeting in the Oval Office in February. What does he really think of Donald Trump? How much were you able to extract from his friends on that meeting?
Well, yes. I mean, we all saw that awful meeting. Zelensky apparently doesn't think that he did anything wrong. He basically, according to another biographer, I spoke to two of his biographers, according to Simon Schuster, who's an American journalist of Ukrainian and Russian or heritage, who spent a lot of time with Zelensky. He believes that, but Zelensky doesn't scrape and bow or kowtow. He doesn't do protocol. He just likes to grab the phone and say, "Let's chat." He much prefers one-on-one meetings where he feels he has the power to basically the power to win anyone over in a one-on-one meeting. It's a sort of an actor's power, perhaps, that he can play a role and win someone over. And that's essentially what he thinks he may have done with Trump in the Vatican in that more cordial meeting a month later. But as for the Oval Office meeting, he figures that he was right to hold his ground, but he regretted it. He regretted the unpleasantness, and he as you say, criticism gets him down. He has that actor's love of a good review,
Sensitive
and
to a
a
bad review.
really it depresses him. And for a few days, he was pretty down,
Yeah.
but he bounced back from that very quickly.